Good evening. The story you are about to hear is a work of fiction. Though it may sound familiar, it is not real. The voices, while strikingly lifelike, are not those of real individuals, but have been generated entirely through artificial intelligence. Rest easy. No broadcasters were frozen in the making of this program. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or otherwise entombed in ice, is purely coincidental. There are no classified documents here, no secret satellites, no malfunctioning weather machines, at least not ones we're authorized to discuss. And should you hear whispering in the static, well, that's just your imagination. Now then, breathe deeply, wrap up warm, and enjoy the show.
This isn't the beginning of the storm. It's the beginning of the recordings. What you're hearing now, these fragments, these transmissions, are all that's left. It's what survived the static, the frost, the silence. I don't know who will hear this. I only know that someone has to. Before the frost reached us, before the sky went quiet, before the white drowned the world, these voices were warning us. You'll hear anchors trying to stay calm, scientists clinging to their data, families whispering in snow-choked homes. You'll even hear the madness. All of it matters. Listen closely. This is day 0, the last clear broadcast before everything changed.
Good evening and thank you for joining us on this chilly but beautiful morning in Iron Ridge. While temperatures across the northern counties are dipping slightly below seasonal averages, the general forecast remains stable for now. However, our team is tracking an unusual low-pressure pattern forming off the coast of Labrador. Early models suggest some potential jet stream disruption, though it's too soon to draw conclusions. We now go live to Janet Walker, who is at the Northern Weather Monitoring Station just outside town.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm standing here just a few miles north of Iron Ridge, where technicians are reviewing strange high-altitude data readings from the last 48 hours. Some of the equipment has already frozen, not from exposure, but internal faults caused by extreme low-pressure spikes. We spoke briefly to one staffer who described it as a cold with teeth. No one's ringing alarm bells yet, but they're watching this one closely. Back to you, Brandon.
Thank you, Janet. We'll continue to follow that developing story and bring you updates as more data becomes available. Coming up next, a few minor delays on the president's overseas trip, but officials say it's just a matter of rerouting. And later, what some are calling the earliest Arctic blooms in satellite history. Stay with us.
What they don't want you to know, what they've been pumping full of lies for years, is finally biting them in the face and freezing over the truth. We're talking about full-spectrum climate manipulation, weather as weapon protocols, and sky grids that don't belong to God anymore. You think this is just a cold front? This isn't some freak storm that blew off a mountain ridge, folks. This is engineered. These are tactical weather deployments using ionospheric distortion to bend the jet stream like a damn garden hose. We've got evidence, yes, evidence of high-frequency beam arrays lighting up from the Aleutian chain to northern Quebec, and don't even get me started on Greenland. They've been running silent ops out there since 2002. Deep ice drilling, thermal vent redirect, and satellite rerouting over research sectors. And now, just coincidentally, the same sectors are showing unnatural freeze walls on satellite overlays. Explain that, Noah. Explain why planes are being grounded without wind shear, why birds are falling dead with crystallized lungs, why your power bill just tripled while the grid hums like it's in hospice. You ever heard of stratocloud blooming? No? Of course not, because they scrubbed the patents in 2014. Look it up on archive servers, I dare you. They're pumping the upper atmosphere full of nano-aerosolized salts and steering cold mass air movements with orbital reflectors. Weather satellites have gone offline, 4 of them, just in the last 36 hours. And they keep blaming solar interference, but guess what? No solar activity has been logged above normal. It's a lie. They're losing control of their own machine. This cold isn't just dangerous, it's sentient, because we gave it eyes and hands. If you think I'm insane, then go ahead, sleep next to your smart fridge and let DARPA whisper to your thermostat while your kids freeze in their beds. This is mass-scale geo-warfare, and the only thing standing between you and a frozen coffin is knowledge. They shut down schools not because of the weather, but because your children might start asking questions. And the only thing more dangerous than a frost wave is a 10-year-old with curiosity. Wake up! They are reformatting the planet from orbit. That's not winter knocking on your door, it's a lab-grown glacier with your zip code printed on it. I warned you last year when the jet stream dipped into Texas. That wasn't a fluke, that was a test. And now we're the rats in the maze watching the temperature drop while FEMA preps warming camps in already abandoned towns. The power's not out, it's being cut. This isn't a natural disaster, it's a reset. Don't listen to the broadcasters, don't trust the forecasts, and for the love of what's left of this country, don't go outside unless you've got answers. Store water, charge radios, and tell your neighbors the truth, even if it gets you called crazy. Because if you don't act now, you'll be the next anomaly they chalk up to a system error. And you'll freeze, quiet, like the rest of them, buried beneath engineered silence.
The radio started skipping around day 6. Static on the weather band. NOAA loops had never updated. Someone was talking, maybe screaming, under the white noise. We thought it was a glitch that spread from house to house, tower to tower. One by one, the signals faded, and the silence grew teeth. The voices that did come through, they didn't sound like warnings. They sounded like regrets.
Good evening. What began as an unusual low-pressure warning has now prompted the temporary shutdown of 2 regional weather satellites covering the north-central corridor. While officials insist this is a routine diagnostic calibration, several meteorological stations across the Great Lakes have reported data loss, signal jamming, and in one case, a total thermal blackout. We've also received early confirmation that northern transmission towers in Iron County and Clearwater have gone offline with no weather-related damage. These anomalies come as local residents report spotty power outages and unexplained sub-zero gusts moving across open farmland. For more, we go now to Janet Walker, reporting live from outside a regional substation.
Brandon, we're about 4 miles east of Langston, where crews have been working since sunrise to bring this substation back online. According to the regional utility, temperatures in the control core dropped nearly 30 degrees overnight, despite the building being fully insulated. The staff says the equipment just gave up. Every backup fuse blew simultaneously at 3:14 a.m. No explanation yet, but that's not even the strangest part. Multiple eyewitnesses here claim to have seen flocks of geese simply fall from the sky. One line tech described it as a bird storm. The Department of Wildlife has been notified, but as of now, no one has an official explanation. Brandon, it feels like the rules are changing out here. Back to you.
Thank you, Janet. That's the second bird fall incident in 2 days. Our team is currently comparing satellite telemetry with the National Avian Migration Log to investigate possible environmental causes. Meanwhile, we've received unconfirmed reports of intermittent radio frequency interference stretching across 3 counties. State authorities have not yet commented on the outages. What we can say is this: our data networks are weakening just as the temperature begins to fall. Here to discuss this further, we're joined by climatologist Dr. Ann Morton from the National Weather Laboratory.
Thank you, Brandon. We're currently observing a disintegration of high-altitude wind structures. What that means is the upper jet stream has stopped behaving like a stream and started behaving like a wall. Heat isn't dispersing, it's backing up in dead zones. That backup creates pressure voids that can destabilize ground-level thermal readings. In simpler terms, we're seeing rapid sub-zero shifts without a triggering storm system. These are not natural fluctuations, they're atmospheric misfires. We don't yet understand the full mechanics, but we are dangerously close to losing our ability to forecast. What's coming next may not be a wave, it may be a state change. And if that's true, we're already behind it.
While we wait for further confirmation, we urge listeners to remain indoors and limit power consumption until grids stabilize. Reports of localized blackouts are growing, especially in rural zones. We'll be speaking with Dr. Morton again tomorrow to break down the next thermal scan overlay. Until then, stay warm, stay informed, and keep your radios on.
By day 8, you could hear the silence pressing against the windows. There were no birds, no trucks, no planes overhead. Just cold, deep surgical cold. I was still trying to believe it was temporary. But then I heard what Brandon said next. That's when I stopped wondering if people were listening, and started wondering if anyone was even left to hear.
This morning, the Federal Meteorological Command released updated jet stream visualizations showing total collapse of its eastern branch. Air currents are no longer looping, they're breaking. Instead of dispersing across the Atlantic, atmospheric flow is now plunging vertically into the Midwest, dragging polar temperatures down at nearly triple the normal rate. A phenomenon this severe hasn't been documented since satellite tracking began. The National Weather Safety Board has issued a multi-state frost advisory, citing sudden blizzards across Nebraska, Iowa, and now our own state. In a historic move, temporary martial law has been enacted across several rural counties to support emergency logistics. For more on that, we now go live to Janet Walker, standing in the affected zone.
Brandon, we're in Coldwell Township, where what started as a cold front has become a full whiteout crisis. Entire roads are impassable, not just from snow, but from sheets of hard-packed ice climbing up power poles and fencing in houses. The National Guard has arrived with fuel tankers and meal units, but some residents haven't been reached at all. There's a family on Crayline Road using an old wood stove to melt snow for water. One boy reportedly hallucinated birds flying upside down. Emergency crews say they're overwhelmed. Some are breaking protocol just to rescue elderly residents. I saw one medic walk out sobbing, just said, "Too late. I'll be staying with the convoy tonight." Back to you, Brandon.
Thank you, Janet. Stay warm and stay safe. With jet stream paths shattering, emergency weather modeling is no longer reliable. The state governor has suspended non-essential travel and authorized deployment of warming tents. Citizens are urged to remain indoors and conserve power. For an explanation of what's happening above our heads, we turn now to climatologist Dr. Ann Morton, joining us remotely from the Regional Climate Lab.
Brandon, we're now observing unprecedented cooling at the thermospheric level. That's roughly 80 to 100 kilometers above the surface, and it's showing sharp symmetrical drops in thermal radiation across an unusually wide zone. The stratosphere below it is buckling inward. That means cold air isn't dispersing around the globe anymore, it's dropping directly down into our region. In essence, we're being targeted by the atmosphere itself. Our team has identified anomalies in magnetic drift and increased interference in orbital wind sensors. I hate to say this, but the upper atmosphere isn't just unstable, it's collapsing. And our models have no way of showing where the bottom is.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. It's now clear that we're dealing with a systemic atmospheric breakdown, not a seasonal variation. In response to growing concern, the president has issued his first official address on the crisis. We go now to Washington, where the president is about to speak.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
My fellow citizens, I speak to you tonight not from a place of fear, but of responsibility. In recent days, you've witnessed events that feel unprecedented because they are. Freezing winds in early autumn, satellite outages, frost warnings issued farther south than we've ever recorded. It's not just a cold snap, it's a system-level shift, one we are still learning to read. I know families are bundled in dark rooms tonight, unsure if the power will hold. I know some are angry, some afraid, and some simply exhausted from worry. Let me be clear, you are not alone. Your government has been preparing for winter events, and now those preparations are being activated. We have mobilized resources, empowered governors, and engaged international experts from across the Northern Hemisphere. This is not a passive moment. It is a coordinated national response. Effective immediately, we are authorizing National Guard deployments for logistical support in affected zones. This includes fuel delivery, mobile shelter deployment, and high-efficiency heating units routed to regional hubs. We are reactivating dormant energy reserves and suspending price caps on thermal fuel production to accelerate supply. For families in rural zones, backup generators will be distributed through local fire departments and volunteer networks. Additionally, we are launching a cold crisis communications network, a backup analog channel to deliver emergency guidance to areas losing digital signal. These steps are not reactive, they are strategic, and they are just the beginning. We are working closely with climatologists and defense meteorology teams to understand the full scope of this pattern. And while the data changes hourly, the conclusion remains consistent. This is an atmospheric emergency unlike any we've seen in modern time. I want to speak plainly now, not as commander-in-chief, but as a husband, a father, and an American. This will not be easy. Roads will close, lights will flicker, fear will creep in through the cracks, but so will resolve. I have faith in our capacity to face the unknown, not with panic, but with grit. If you have neighbors, check on them. If you have extra, share it. Keep your radios on and your home safe and know that help is coming. I will now take a few questions.
Mr. President, can you confirm whether the United States has used or is developing weather modification technologies?
That's a fair question. No, the United States does not and will not engage in experimental atmospheric engineering of any kind without full oversight and public disclosure. I understand the concerns, but we are focused on real-time relief, not rumors.
Sir, is this the beginning of something bigger, something global?
We are witnessing something unusual, no question. But we are not declaring this a global event at this time. We are in constant contact with our allies, and the data continues to evolve.
Why weren't we warned earlier?
In truth, the speed of this shift has outpaced even our most advanced systems. We're adjusting in real time, and that means learning and acting together. I hear your frustration. I share it.
Are martial law declarations permanent?
Absolutely not. These are temporary measures designed to ensure supply lines and rescue teams can do their jobs safely. We will review each zone daily.
Are we safe tonight?
Tonight, we are safer because we're facing this together. Keep your radios on, check on your neighbors, and know this, we are still here and we are not backing down. That is all the questions I have time for today. Stay warm, stay steady.
Welcome back to the Human Signal. I'm Jason Evans, and I've got with me someone you've probably seen in a dozen news clips this week, though never for long enough to hear what he actually thinks. Dr. Jack Hall is a climatologist, former national advisor, and if the internet's correct, a guy who predicted flash freeze events before it was trendy. Jack, welcome to the Icebox. First question right out the gate, is this real? Like, are we actually living in the early stages of a man-made ice age, or is the media just addicted to disaster again?
Jason, thank you for having me. To answer your question bluntly, yes, this is real, but not in the way most people think. What we're witnessing isn't the arrival of a new ice age, but the collapse of the mechanisms that prevent one. Think of the jet stream as a belt. It holds the cold where it belongs. That belt has broken, and when that happens, the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic. The cold spreads fast, erratically, and violently. And most of our infrastructure, power grids, fuel lines, food systems, isn't built to survive that kind of shift.
Dude, that's terrifying. So you're saying this isn't like the global warming headlines from a few years ago? It's more like climate snapback? Like a pendulum swinging too far one way and now swinging back even harder?
That's actually a perfect metaphor. Global warming destabilized key systems, ocean currents, atmospheric loops, polar caps. And instead of a slow melt, we got chaos. The heat disrupted the balance that kept cold in its cage. And now, without that balance, the cold is behaving like a living thing, one that's angry and fast. We're seeing temperature drops of 20, 30 degrees in under 90 minutes in some zones. And satellite data is failing, not just from the cold, but from interference we don't fully understand.
Wait, what kind of interference? Like tech malfunctions? Or are we talking something bigger?
Both. Some satellites are going dark. Others are returning data that doesn't align with ground truth. That means either the sensors are wrong or the Earth itself is behaving in a way we've never modeled. Either outcome is bad. We've lost multiple weather balloons and remote stations are showing signs of low orbit radio distortion. That kind of disruption usually takes war or something stronger than war. I'm not ready to speculate on causes, but I will say this, nature is no longer predictable, and prediction was the only thing standing between us and collapse.
That's insane. I mean, do you think this is something we could have seen coming? Or was it just too fast, too quiet?
We did see it coming. We just didn't believe it. The signs were subtle, thinning polar vortex, unseasonal rainfall, stratospheric heating in June. But no one wants to declare winter in summer. No one wants to admit the models broke. I wrote a memo 3 years ago titled The Day After Equinox. It never made it past the 3rd floor. Bureaucracy doesn't fear frost, but it should have.
Jack, I appreciate you, not just for showing up, but for telling the truth when it's way easier to blame the thermometer. If there's one thing people should do after hearing this, what is it? What's the one move that might actually make a difference?
Listen to local scientists. Prepare for long-term cold. And stop waiting for a perfect explanation. This is the explanation. The world changed. Now we change with it, or we don't.
The sound of the snow changed first. It wasn't soft anymore. It scraped like dry paper sliding over wood. By day 12, most houses in town were sealed shut. Not by locks, by ice. I remember walking past the old firehouse, seeing ladders frozen mid-climb like some kind of statue. I remember the silence outside the school. No kids, just frost climbing the windows like roots. And then the radio said something that didn't sound like news. It sounded like a goodbye.
Good evening. In the last 24 hours, state emergency services have confirmed mass school closures across 6 counties due to extreme and sudden frost encasement. In some districts, buses never made it to pickup. Officials are urging parents not to attempt retrieval in hard freeze zones. Multiple vehicles have become immobilized, and one structure collapsed entirely under ice weight. We've been granted exclusive access to a remote household in northern Hollow Ridge, where a family remains trapped under snowpack. We now go live to Janet Walker, reporting from a nearby National Guard checkpoint.
Brandon, we are just a quarter mile from the McIntyre family home, which has been effectively buried under an estimated 11 feet of drifted snow and ice. Using thermal imaging, rescue workers were able to confirm at least 3 heat signatures, 1 adult, 2 children. I was granted a brief radio relay conversation with the mother, Dana McIntyre, who's been using an old battery-powered emergency band to communicate with local ham operators. I'd like to read part of that exchange. "We're okay. We have a candle. We're taking turns keeping the kids warm. Please tell my sister we're not scared." That was 12 hours ago. Since then, the signal's degraded. Rescuers are cutting through by hand. The frost is too dense for machinery. Brandon, they don't know how much longer the air will hold. Back to you.
Thank you, Janet. For those listening near Hollow Ridge, please clear routes and assist where able. Search and rescue is working without standard GPS or aerial support due to increasing cloud ionization and magnetic interference. We've also received new reports of blue-white snow crystal formation across parts of the northeastern range, a phenomenon not seen since the 1930s. Scientists believe this may indicate high-altitude moisture dropouts combined with ozone freeze. We'll have more on that when Dr. Morton rejoins us. And finally, we are monitoring updates from the Capitol, where military supply directives are being revised under emergency condition tiers. We expect an update from Washington within the next 36 hours. Until then, conserve heat, stay grounded, and keep your frequency clear.
I've started seeing things. Flickers in the corners of my eyes, shapes in the frost on the window. Sometimes they look like people I knew. Sometimes they're people I don't. I think the cold plays with the brain after a while. You start to imagine warmth where there is none. A red glow that turns out to be a reflection. A voice on the radio that isn't really there, but I wrote it down anyway. I wrote it all down in case someone else is still listening.
Good evening. A rapid frost line expansion event has now been confirmed across 4 states, and thermal satellites show no indication of reversal. What began as scattered anomalies is now forming a continuous blue-white belt of ice from Manitoba to Ohio. Experts are calling it the horizon. Travel north of that boundary has been deemed hazardous without state clearance and thermal suits. We're receiving conflicting reports from Glacier Run, a high-altitude town that appears to be forming its own subclimate zone. For more, we go now to Janet Walker, broadcasting just outside the perimeter.
Brandon, we're standing roughly 10 miles south of Glacier Run, a town that as of this morning was still operating with partial power and fuel reserves. But what we're seeing now defies expectations. Overnight, the region transformed into a kind of frozen canyon, roads sheared off by expanding ice veins, trees bent to unnatural angles under the weight of flash freeze bursts. We tried to approach on foot, but had to turn back. Temperatures dropped 15 degrees in less than 7 minutes. Residents who've made it out describe everything coated in a translucent glaze like glass, but alive. One survivor claimed the snow moved sideways. Others reported seeing beams of light in the fog, but no source. Brandon, whatever's happening here, it's not just meteorological. It feels like the land itself is changing. We'll stay as long as we can.
Thank you, Janet. Our thoughts are with your team. For those just joining us, the region north of the Blue Horizon line is no longer considered climate stable. State authorities have begun issuing climate tier warnings by elevation, a first in recorded history. We now turn to Dr. Ann Morton, who joins us with new data from the upper atmosphere jet stream models. Dr. Morton?
Thank you, Brandon. I wish I had better news. What we've confirmed is that the jet stream has not only split, it's begun looping back on itself. This means pockets of Arctic air are being trapped and recirculated in closed systems, creating what we call cryogenic feedback zones. In plain terms, the cold is no longer passing through, it's doubling down. Satellite visuals show concentric freeze rings around certain pressure points, including several glacial valleys and man-made dams. We believe some of this may be due to terrain-induced climate echoes, essentially frost reflecting back onto itself. The models are failing because they were never designed to predict behavior from a system this broken. We're watching climate physics rewrite itself in real time.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. In the days ahead, we'll continue tracking the expansion of the Blue Horizon line and the changes it brings. Tomorrow, we'll hear from more rural communities on the edge of that frost zone. And later this week, a special segment with survival experts and civic leaders as the cold begins rewriting more than just weather. Stay warm, stay calm, and stay with us.
Welcome back to the Human Signal. My guest today needs no introduction for those of you who've been awake longer than 5 minutes. Alan Cooper is back, author, broadcaster, walking middle finger to the deep state. He's been screaming about climate manipulation long before the rest of us noticed ice crawling down our driveways. Alan, you said something off air that stopped me cold, and I quote, "This isn't weather, this is a test." A test of what?
A test of how much silence they can pump into the sky before people freeze to death trying to Google it. Weather's not real anymore, Jason. It's a simulation. You think natural systems collapse this fast on their own? Birds don't fall out of the sky and freeze mid-flight because Mother Nature changed her mood. No, this is a grid shutdown, a reroute, a reprogramming. I've got ham operators in Quebec who haven't heard clear air since Tuesday. Satellites are going dark, not from cold, from interference. They're jamming observation platforms to hide the experiment. Arctic base is offline. Weather balloons shredded. Flight corridors rerouted to avoid non-civilian signals. This is not weather, Jason. It's weaponry. And the worst part, it's working.
Hold on, you're saying this cold isn't natural at all? Like, not even a side effect of warming or ocean currents or whatever the scientists are saying?
I'm saying it's engineered. They destabilized the stratosphere on purpose, and now they're using geoplasma reflectors to direct the fallout. We've got audio logs from polar missions that went silent mid-transmission. Last words were frozen shadows. You want to explain that with El Nino? No, this is a cold wave they built, and it's not a malfunction, it's a purge.
Dude, I mean, how long do you think they've been planning this? If this is a system-level wipe, what's the goal?
The goal is always the same. Control. They want the population scared, disconnected, cold, and begging for centralized heat like it's a blessing from the sky gods. You control the weather, you control the crops, you control the crops, you control the people. They've got bunkers already warm. The elite, they're not cold. They've been planning this since the last major solar minimum. I've seen procurement manifest, mobile heating domes, airborne water seeding drones, silent power relays that don't use fossil fuel or wind. Ask yourself why they stopped showing live satellite feeds 3 days ago. Ask yourself why birds are migrating into colder zones. Because something's telling them to. And it's not nature.
I don't know, man. I mean, I believe something's off, I do. But if this is that big, why haven't more people blown the whistle?
They have, and now they're missing. You think Dr. Kessler just retired mid-satellite cycle? That woman tracked thermosphere pressure waves like nobody else. Gone. 3 station chiefs reassigned to non-communication roles. Gone. Every meteorologist I trust has gone dark. They're scrubbing the data and deleting the voices. And you know what fills the silence? Ice.
Alan Cooper, everybody. Whether you think he's right, half right, or just early, I'll say this. Something's definitely happening, and it's getting harder to explain with thermometers. So keep your minds open, your radios warm, and your questions louder than your fear. We'll be right back.
Started with fire. Not the kind that warms, the kind that fights back. People burn their fences, their floorboards, their books. Some burn family photos. The fire wasn't about staying comfortable anymore. It was about surviving another night. I watched a man light an American flag because the cotton burned slower than his couch. I didn't stop him. I asked him if he was warm. He said no, just not as cold. We used to call fire dangerous. Now we call it lucky.
This morning, the Southern Power Consortium confirmed the complete failure of Grid Node Delta, severing direct electricity flow to over 1.7 million households. Officials cite substation freezing and thermal line collapse in Arkansas, Tennessee, and parts of northern Mississippi. These regions were considered temperate zones just 2 weeks ago. Federal emergency crews are rerouting fuel trucks and generator units, but delays are widespread. Hospitals are operating on backup diesel. Schools have been converted into overnight shelters. Several smaller towns have reported improvised heating fires, some in parking lots, some in public buildings. We now go live to Janet Walker, embedded with one of the rescue convoys heading towards central Kentucky.
Brandon, I'm broadcasting from inside a National Guard medical transport. Heat is holding, but barely. We're moving in slow formation, weaving between iced-over highway pylons and vehicles left in the middle of the road. One of them had a frozen family still inside. We marked it with orange tape and moved on. That's what we do now, mark and move. I spoke with a convoy leader. She said some of the towns up ahead haven't had power in 4 days. Most folks are huddled in community centers, burning furniture and dry insulation for heat. We saw one house blinking SOS using flashlight batteries taped to a window. The snow looks normal at first, but the closer you get to the ridge lines, the more it feels hostile. One soldier said it feels like it's watching. That's a hard thing to say out loud when your boots are cracking ice beneath you. We're hoping to reach Barrow Falls by nightfall if the radio holds. Back to you, Brandon.
Thank you, Janet. Our prayers go with you and the team. For those in affected areas, conserve batteries, ration fuel, and listen to emergency bands for shelter locations. Coming up next, how local leaders are preparing evacuation zones ahead of the next frost expansion. And later this week, an exclusive interview with Dr. Jack Hall as new atmospheric anomalies spread south. Stay inside. Stay informed.
You think they're suffering with you? You think the people who built this freeze are curled up in blankets watching their breath? No, they're drinking hot coffee under 600 feet of reinforced concrete. They're in underground cities they built while you were watching election coverage. I've been shouting about this for decades. I told you about the underground rail loop from Colorado to Virginia. I told you about the FEMA camps with no addresses. And now the proof is in your silence and the sound your heater doesn't make. The cold is a strategy. You don't roll out an engineered climate collapse unless you've got somewhere warm to watch it from. Why do you think the supply chains broke overnight? Why do you think your phone can't download a weather update, but the military has full comms inside frozen zones? Because they planned this. This isn't a blackout, it's a blindfold. You're being frozen into obedience while they wait for the last radio to go quiet, and when it does, they rise. Their cities already exist. Deep geothermal bunkers stocked with oxygen, fresh protein, nuclear-grade light, and climate-controlled greenhouses. I've seen the leaked specs, domed biospheres under Cheyenne Mountain, cold-resistant monorail tunnels in northern Quebec, sealed tram ports in Oregon forests. Why do you think they stopped drilling oil? Because they've got fusion. Why did they kill the weather satellites? Because the frost rings would reveal the truth. The storm patterns aren't natural, they're symmetrical. Nature doesn't spiral like that without input. These storms are being spun. You don't get a polar blast in Miami unless someone aimed it, and now they're calling it a deep freeze phenomenon like it's just a phase. No, it's the final phase. And when your water lines crack and your generator dies and your baby can't cry because her lips are frozen, they'll be toasting champagne below ground watching it on thermal screens. And if you think I'm wrong, ask yourself this: where's the president? Where are the tech billionaires? Where's the damn rescue? They're not late, they're never coming. This isn't about who survives the cold. It's about who knew it was coming and disappeared right before it hit. Keep your eyes open, people, and keep your hands near the fire, because the warmth you feel now might be the last they let you have.
The shelter lights flicker now on, then gone. Sometimes I wait 5 full breaths before they come back. Other times they don't. The radio stutters when I touch it. It used to hum, but now it gasps, like it's trying to find a signal it doesn't believe in anymore. I've stopped marking days. I mark sounds now, the cracks, the whispers in the ice. That's how I know the world hasn't ended yet. The static still changes.
Good evening. This will be brief. Studio temperature is unstable and our broadcast backup is now running on partial battery. I am wearing 2 coats. I will continue. Earlier this afternoon, communication was lost with 3 northeastern municipalities, including Tanner's Crossing, Red Lake, and South Tipton. We believe they are still occupied. We do not know by whom. The military has issued a general blackout across affected zones to preserve emergency energy resources. What remains of our grid is now designated Tier 3. Power will be rationed hourly. We go now to Janet Walker reporting from a transit checkpoint outside Iron Hollow. Janet, are you receiving us?
Brandon, we are standing beside a stalled emergency convoy on what used to be State Road 9. The snow has stopped falling, but it's not melting. It's growing horizontally, clinging to the sides of trucks like roots, like ice with a memory. Visibility dropped about 30 minutes ago, and we're picking up strange atmospheric resonance on portable receivers, like voices inside a freezer. One of the guards said he saw a shimmer, a heat mirage in the cold. And then the back axle of the fuel transport froze and shattered mid-idle. We're going to...
Janet, are you there? Janet, if you can hear us, switch to relay band 4. We're trying to reestablish signal now. While we wait, we are joined remotely by climatologist Dr. Ann Morton, who has accessed our studio feed through emergency satellite uplink. Dr. Morton, please go ahead.
Thank you, Brandon. I'll speak plainly. The polar cell has fractured. The jet stream no longer has structure. Cold air is now self-sustaining in rogue patterns, looping and feeding back on itself without atmospheric direction. Our latest data suggests Earth's climate zones are no longer vertically aligned. They're tilting, like plates under strain. That means snow where it shouldn't be, silence where there used to be rain. This isn't just acceleration, it's inversion. Our models can't keep up. Our team has lost contact with 3 high-altitude stations, and the ice cores we've studied for decades are behaving erratically. We believe what's coming next may not be measurable. I hope I'm wrong.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. If you've lost signal, conserve energy and rotate batteries. Transmitters are failing across the eastern region. In our next broadcast, we expect to receive a new statement from the White House.
ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
My fellow Americans, tonight I want to speak not only as your president, but as your neighbor. Well, we've shared many long nights these past few weeks. Nights spent without power, without certainty, and in far too many cases, without someone we love. We've seen homes become shelters, schools become clinics, and silence take the place of voices we used to hear every day. Across this nation, people are showing courage not with weapons, but with warmth, holding each other close, lighting candles when the grid goes black, shoveling paths not because it's their job, but because it's the right thing to do. That is who we are, and that's who we remain, even in the cold. Now, I understand truly that many of you are asking hard questions. Why wasn't this predicted? Why weren't we prepared? Let me say clearly, we did not choose this path, but we are walking it now, and we will walk it together. Over the past 72 hours, my administration has launched a full investigation into historical climate data irregularities, blackout timeline gaps, and private infrastructure activity. We are leaving no stone unturned. We've also accelerated aid packages for every cold zone municipality and reactivated civilian resilience training across affected states. We are no longer responding. We are rebuilding in real time, and we will share what we find every step of the way. But tonight, before we talk recovery, I want us to hold space for the names. The names we can't list, not because they're unknown, but because they're ours. The fathers who stayed behind to restart the generator. The nurses who kept breathing into frozen air masks. The neighbors who opened basements to strangers and never asked for thanks. These are not just stories of loss, they are testaments of love, and we must carry them forward. This winter is not just weather, it's a test of who we choose to be in the cold. And I believe in who we are. Stay safe, stay strong, and remember the warmth we've lost by keeping it alive in how we act, how we speak, and how we refuse to let this define us.
Mr. President, do you believe the worst is behind us?
No, but I believe the best in us is still ahead.
Are you confident in the grid?
We're not asking it to hold anymore. We're asking people to hold each other. That's stronger. That's all for now. Good night. Keep the light on, even if it's just a match.
Brothers and sisters, you can hear it, can't you? That sound outside your door isn't just snow, it's scripture. It's the voice of the Lord written in frost and pressure and silence. I walked through the woods last night and the trees didn't creak, they wept. The wind has changed its tongue. It speaks in warnings now. And still we huddle around our dead wires and broken furnaces praying for the lights to return like they are God. But the lights are not God. Your phone is not God. Your thermostat, your president, your emergency broadcast system, they cannot save you. Because what's coming for us was sent for us, and it does not melt with batteries. This is judgment dressed in white. Look at how we lived. We paved rivers and salted the oceans. We burned the sky and laughed at the warnings. And when the first flake fell out of season, we called it an event. No, this is not an event, it is a reckoning. It is the long consequence of short pride. You asked the earth to bear you, and you broke her spine. You asked the heavens to wait, and they broke their silence. The Lord gave you spring, and you built factories. He gave you seasons, and you sold them back in 2-day shipping. Now He gives you winter, and no man can tell when it will end. So I ask you, who are you in the frost? Are you a survivor, or are you a witness? Because not all who live will see the thaw. But listen, this I know, the Lord does not leave His remnant unmarked. Even in the coldest tomb of ice there is a coal burning, a holy ember in the chest of every man who chooses love over comfort. So build fires, yes, but build them with kindness. Wrap the weak, feed the stranger. Speak warmth even when your voice shakes. Because this cold is not just a trial, it is a mirror. And when we are seen by the Lord in this season, it will not be by our coats, but by our hearts. When He calls us out of the frost, will we rise alone? Or will we carry the broken with us? The ice was sent for us. The question is, what will we send back? Let it be fire. Let it be love.
a siren last night. I thought it was real, it had rhythm, distance, pain. But when I stepped outside, there was nothing. Just snow and a tree groaning in the dark. I've started to imagine sounds. Not voices, not songs, tones. Like warnings for machines that no longer exist. I told myself it was just the wind, but I think it's the silence filling itself with whatever it can find.
Good evening. We are now receiving confirmation from State Emergency Management all automated warning sirens in sectors 3 through 6 have failed. These systems, many of which have backup solar arrays, appear to have lost synchronization and internal function. In some counties, sirens triggered spontaneously without command. In others, they remain silent during active blizzard formations. This has prompted a shift to analog air horn and mobile loudspeaker deployments by local responders. Additionally, low-band frequencies continue to degrade across rural zones. Affected residents are being advised to remain near visible markers, flags, tape, and blinking lights to signal location to rescuers. We now go to Janet Walker reporting live from a state-designated warming center near the southern perimeter.
Brandon, I'm speaking from what used to be a high school gymnasium. Now it's home to over 400 people. Families sleep on the floor in blankets, behind tables, under signs that used to say, "Go Wildcats." The heat is holding for now, but the air smells like melted plastic and sweat. Everyone's coughing, not from illness, but from breathing too close to their own breath for too many days. There's a generator outside, guarded like gold. I spoke with one of the volunteers. She was a janitor before this. Now she's leading supply distribution and rescue coordination. She said, "We've got nothing left to wait for, so we just do." There's something holy in that. Still, some say they hear sirens in their dreams, but they're coming from inside. We're out of sleeping bags, we're down to counting matches, but we're still here. Back to you.
Thank you, Janet. If you're near a warming center, do not delay. If you are alone, hang something bright on your front door or window. Emergency crews are working without radar, without satellite, and increasingly without roads. And for those in the northern sectors, we are awaiting a new presidential statement expected within 24 hours. That message may include changes to Tier 3 survival protocol. Until then, stay visible, stay calm, and stay alive.
Welcome back to the Human Signal. You've heard the scientists, the survivors, the theorists, and today you're going to hear a man who says this cold was prophesied. John Thomas is a preacher from East Ridge, Michigan, but lately his sermons have been traveling faster than the frost. Pastor Thomas, I've got one question to open this. Is this judgment?
Judgment isn't the storm, son. Judgment is what you do in the storm. I've watched people burn their last Bible to stay warm and then curse God for the silence. I don't blame them, but I don't lie to them either. The silence, that is God. The frost, the stillness, the unnatural weight pressing on the sky, all of it is the Lord withdrawing his hand and asking, what did you build when it was warm? You spent your seasons chasing comfort. Now he's giving you a chance to chase something else, truth.
Look, I'm not exactly a church guy, but I grew up with it. I remember hearing that the world would end in fire, not in snow.
Then you weren't listening to the end of the verse. The book of Job says, from its chamber comes the whirlwind and cold from the scattering winds. Revelation doesn't say it'll be heat. It says terror, and what's colder than that? This world didn't burn itself to death. It burned everything else, and now it's being frozen into stillness. It is being made quiet, and we were warned.
That's intense. I mean, it feels like something biblical. Well, where's the line, right? Like, how do we know what's divine and what's just us messing up the planet?
We don't. That's the test. The Lord doesn't thunder in this season. He whispers through collapse. A scientist sees the storm and looks for a formula. A preacher sees it and looks for a pattern in the soul. We're not supposed to explain this cold. We're supposed to repent in it. And if we survive it, we walk into spring with humility or not at all.
But what about people who aren't religious? They didn't cause this, they're just trying to stay alive.
And that's enough. You don't need perfect faith or memorized verses. The Lord does not tally belief like inventory. He sees the heart, not the record. If you've called out to him even once, even with shaking hands and frozen breath, he heard you. This isn't about church walls or sermons. It's about conscience, about choosing light when everything around you begs for darkness. And if you've asked Jesus to meet you in this cold, he already has. He's there in the shelter you shared, in the warmth you gave away. If you're huddled with someone else tonight, stranger, sinner, saint, you're already part of the remnant.
I didn't expect this conversation to go like this. I thought we'd be talking fire and brimstone, not blankets and mercy. That says a lot. Pastor John Thomas, thank you for the words and the warning. And for the rest of you out there, I hope your radio still works. Stay close and stay warm.
I haven't slept in 2 days. I can't tell if the sound outside is wind or breathing. I think I'm hallucinating. Every shadow looks like it wants something. The cold presses down like gravity. I thought I heard my mother's voice last night. She's been gone 10 years. The frost is growing across the inside of the windows now. I don't know what happens when it reaches the door. I just keep recording.
Good evening. We begin with breaking information from the Federal Data Integrity Council. More than a dozen long-range weather telemetry feeds have gone offline. Officials now confirm that multiple data sets are looping, repeating identical sequences, frame for frame with no new readings. Some images show weather systems rotating in reverse. Experts have not ruled out digital corruption or temporal feedback. In affected regions, clocks have failed, cell towers are dead, and no two towns report the same date. We go now to Janet Walker, broadcasting from what may be the last functioning underground shelter in Central Sector.
Brandon, we're currently 14 feet underground in the Ironfield Civic Safety Bunker. This was built in the 1960s, retrofitted last fall, supposed to hold 200. There are over 800 people down here now. Children are sleeping on shelves, elderly on folded maps of evacuation routes that no longer exist. The lights flicker with no pattern. The air is thick and sweet, not from rot, but from shared breath. Someone collapsed near the heat vent and didn't wake up. The medics wrapped her in foil and whispered something I couldn't hear. Brandon, I'm starting to think the cold isn't just outside anymore. It's coming through the concrete. I'll report again if I can.
Thank you, Janet. Please stay safe. Please stay with us. With system failures spreading, we now turn to Dr. Ann Morton, joining us on emergency analog line for updated environmental readings and whatever this is.
Brandon, we are officially entering uncharted territory. Atmospheric flow patterns have stopped behaving like weather. They're no longer responding to heat, wind, or rotation. They're cycling, repeating spatial formations with no energy source. One formation over the northern lakes has maintained its exact structure for nearly 41 hours. Our data now shows frost rings expanding at a logarithmic rate, not linear. And something else, in 2 locations, time has stalled. Sensors are active, batteries are full, but nothing moves. We've observed a fixed snowflake suspended in air for 3 hours. I don't know what this means, Brandon. I don't know if this is a storm anymore. I think it might be a state.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. That was difficult to hear. If you are in a zone showing signs of repeat patterns, static air, or clock failures, leave if you can. We repeat, evacuate if you observe repeated time behavior. We will continue to broadcast as long as the feed holds. Until then, log the day, light a fire, and hold on to something real.
The icicles dripped yesterday. Water pooled under the cabin door for the first time in 12 days. I thought maybe it was ending. Maybe the sun had cut through. But this morning, it was colder than ever. The water flash froze into glass. The cracks in the ice weren't melting, they were growing. I think the cold let us breathe just to hear us gasp when it came back.
Good evening. Today, over 24 communities reported what experts are calling a false thaw. Temperatures rose by up to 12 degrees over a 6-hour span, prompting residents to leave shelters, attempt travel, and expose infrastructure. At least 93 people were caught outside during the sudden reversal. Most of them were within 500 yards of their homes. The refreeze event was swift, flash icing, black frost, structural collapse. Entire buildings warped from thermal shock. We now go to Janet Walker, broadcasting from what was once a thriving suburban block.
Brandon, we're in what used to be Pine Trace Estates, but tonight it looks like a graveyard. There are cars frozen mid-turn, mailboxes snapped in half, laundry lines wrapped in solid ropes of frost. Every house here opened its door yesterday. Every house is dark now. One woman wrote "thaw" on her front step in sidewalk chalk. We found her inside. She'd fallen trying to relight her furnace. Her fingers were still around the matchbook. Rescue teams are not moving after sunset anymore. The terrain's too unstable. And some residents are reporting bizarre reflections in the ice, like shapes moving beneath frozen puddles. We haven't confirmed anything, but people are afraid to walk on clear ice now. Back to you.
Thank you, Janet. State advisories now warn that surface thaw does not indicate warming and may precede catastrophic refreeze. If you feel temperatures rise, do not exit your shelter. We now turn to climatologist Dr. Ann Morton for scientific confirmation of these inversion events.
Brandon, what we're witnessing isn't just a cold spell, it's a systemic inversion. The stratosphere has fractured completely. We are seeing vertical climate layers reverse, warm air trapped below, unable to move, while cold air spirals in above it. This causes false warming, but only at the surface. It tricks people, buildings, even animals. The reversal triggers rapid freezing as soon as pressure shifts again. Our sensors recorded an 18-degree drop in less than 4 minutes in 2 separate zones, and the feedback loops are tightening. Brandon, I no longer believe this pattern is repairable. We may have already crossed a climate boundary we don't fully understand.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. If you're still listening and you've seen signs of thaw, please wait. Don't rush toward it. Don't trust the warmth. Stay inside, burn slow, share what you can. There is no word tonight from Federal Command. No maps, no orders, no rescue routes. But if you can hear this, we're still here, barely. The generator's down to its final reserve. Fuel ran out sometime this morning. We've been rationing battery backups to keep the board alive. The walls are cold, the mic has frost on the cable. There's ice forming on the glass inside the studio. This station will shut down within the hour. So if this is the last voice you hear, let it remind you that you made it this far, that someone out there was still speaking, still reaching, still human. We don't know what's coming next. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But until this signal dies, we'll keep broadcasting for as long as there's breath, for as long as someone listens. This is Brandon Shaw, signing off.
This is Jason Evans, and if you're hearing this, I guess that means the power held one more hour. I'm not in a studio anymore, just a desk, a dog, and a box of cold batteries. I used to do mic checks, monitor levels, prep questions for guests. Now I talk to static and hope something listens back. I don't know how long the signal carries. They said we'd lose long wave first, then digital, then shortwave. That was 2 weeks ago. The station in Nevada went dark Tuesday. Quebec went silent Thursday. I tried calling Mary and Brandon, even Ann, nothing. But that doesn't mean they're gone. It just means they're where I am, somewhere deeper, somewhere quiet. The wind stopped yesterday, and that scared me more than the cold. I keep thinking about a question I used to ask guests at the end of every episode. What gives you hope? God, I hated that question. Not because it was bad, but because it forced people to lie politely. They'd talk about resilience or the human spirit or how plants grow back after fires. No one ever said hope hurts, but it does. I hoped the frost would stop. It didn't. I hoped the government would step up. They vanished. I hoped someone would open the door when I knocked on that cabin. They didn't, and I understand why. Because fear does something to your muscles. It freezes them long before the air does. I found an old cassette recorder today. There was a tape inside labeled Spring 1994. It was just a kid laughing into the wind. I cried like a child who missed something he never had. But I'm still talking. That's gotta mean something, right? Somewhere out there, maybe there's one more voice pressed against the glass of the world. Maybe you're cold. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're just tired of hearing the walls breathe. I'm here with you. I'm your echo. Proof that we didn't go quiet without saying something first. So say something back. Doesn't have to be much. Say your name. Say the name of someone you lost. Say I remember. Because the frost wants silence, but we still have voices. This is Jason Evans signing off.
I don't know what day it is. I stopped marking them when the window frost stopped changing. The cold doesn't come and go anymore, it just stays. The sun hasn't moved in 2 weeks and the shadows are wrong. I think time has collapsed, or maybe it's just me. I tried to dig out, but the snow made a sound when I touched it. Not a crack, more like a breath. I haven't opened the door since. I hear footsteps at night, but they're too slow to be anything alive. And once I heard my own name, spoken back to me from the chimney. There's no radio anymore. Just a loop of an old forecast saying it'll be cold, then colder, then dark. I still talk to the recorder because I don't want to forget how. My voice sounds like it belongs to someone else. My hands are numb and I write slower now, like the words are freezing before they reach the mic. I think the ice has learned how to listen. I burned the last of the paper 3 nights ago. Even the photos, even the names, I thought it would feel like a goodbye, but it just felt like ash. I don't remember what they look like anymore, just the light that used to be in the room. I keep their names in my head like a match I haven't struck. I say them out loud once a day, just in case memory counts for something in this frozen world. I haven't seen another person in weeks. I stopped hoping someone would knock. Hope is a heavy thing to carry when the food runs out. I rationed everything, even my own voice. I screamed once, but nothing answered. I think sound doesn't carry the same anymore, like the cold swallows it. Or maybe the world just isn't listening back. If you find this, it means the frost didn't take everything. It means something still works. Maybe a battery. Maybe your breath. You found me. I was John Roby. I saw the sky break. I stayed when it fell. I recorded until the recorder blinked red. I told the truth, even when no one was left to hear it. That's what this is. Not survival. Not victory. Just truth. And if the ice holds memory, let it remember I tried. I shared what I had. I didn't scream when the light stopped, and I won't now. This is the last page. If there's warmth where you are, pass it on.
My fellow Americans, you're hearing this, it means something still works. Maybe not the grid, maybe not the roads, but something deeper. The signal that carried this voice to you is the last thread of a nation still reaching out. I know many of you are cold. I know you've lost people. I know the silence feels heavier with each passing night. There was a time not long ago when we measured progress in percentages and forecasts. Now we measure it in heat shared, candles lit, matches not wasted. This message comes not from a podium, but from a bunker built during a different war. I didn't want to come here. No president should. But we go where the people go, even if the people are underground. Let me be clear. We did not understand the scale of what we were facing. There were models, there were warnings, but the truth outpaced the science. It wasn't just climate collapse, it was a collapse of predictability itself. When the skies froze and the clocks broke and the air stopped circulating the way it always had, we entered a new world. I've spoken to survivors who saw sunlight turn to glass. I've read reports of frozen shadows. I've heard the silence over towns that once echoed with children. And still, you carried each other. You shared supplies. You held strangers close when your own blood was gone. And that is what gives me hope. Not that the system endures, but that the people do. So here's what I want you to know. No matter how far this frost spreads, it will never bury the idea of us. America is not a border or a government or a satellite image. America is a whisper passed between two people trying to keep warm in the dark. If you're hearing this, then you are that whisper. Speak it to someone else. Speak it through the ice. Speak it so loud that even the quiet must remember. I will not be making another address. This is the last one, but that does not mean the Union has fallen. The Union remains. It lives in you. It lives in the choices you make when no one's watching. And if spring ever comes again, let it find us not waiting, but standing. I believe in you. I always have. This is President Philip Morgan. Good night, and may we find each other in the thaw.
Don't you dare act surprised. You were warned. I told you they'd bury you beneath your own rooftops, and now you're sleeping under ice that used to be your ceiling fan. You thought I was crazy. You thought I was dangerous. But I was right. The rich left you with ration cards and press briefings while they tunneled into heat domes. They sold you weather reports that didn't match your own windows. And when the frost took your kids, they gave you hashtags. I begged you to look underground, beneath the cities, beneath the air bases, beneath your goddamn grocery store. Do you know what's down there now? Silence. Machines. Laughter. They're watching the world end with a front row seat and climate-controlled oxygen masks. You think I didn't lose anything? I lost my son the night the frost bent steel in half. I held his hand through a crack in the wall while his body turned blue. I told him the noise outside was just wind, but I think it was screaming. I used to think I could fight this with facts, with proof, but facts die fast when no one can feel their fingers. So I screamed louder, pushed harder. Now I'm talking into a mic held together with rubber bands and hope, because I still think someone's out there. You maybe, in a tunnel, in a freezer truck, under a church full of broken candles. And I want you to know, you're not crazy. This was done to us, but we don't have to go quiet. So here's what I say to the frost. You don't get my silence. You don't get my breath. You get my voice until my teeth freeze shut. You get the names of every town that stood without heat and still shared soup. You get the sound of one man calling out over dead air so loud it cracks. Maybe the ice does have memory. Maybe it does hold voices. Then let it remember me. Let it remember all of us. Let it carry the echoes of the ones who didn't get out but refused to disappear. This is Alan Cooper. I was here. I knew. I screamed. And I never stopped telling the truth. Let the ice remember.
I used to believe God lived in the warmth, the sunrises, the ovens, the singing hands around a fire. But I was wrong. He does not hide when the frost comes. He walks in the cold, when the wind screams through your shelter and your breath feels like glass. He is closer than ever. I have heard his voice in the silence, and it is not angry. It is tired of being ignored when things were easy. Now that all is stripped away, no lights, no crowds, no noise, only now do we hear him clearly. Not in thunder, but in the way a stranger shares a match, in the way you say someone's name after they're gone, in the way we still try even when nothing remains. Brothers and sisters, this is not the end, this is the trial. And trials were never meant to be passed in comfort. The Lord sent no angels to plug your generator, but He sent your neighbor. He sent the woman who gave up her blanket, the boy who carried water on frost-bitten feet. These are your angels now. This is how we prove we still deserve spring, and not all of us will see it. I've buried more names than I can count, but I say them each night because names are warmth. If you can say the name of someone you love, you can still be saved. You do not need a church. You do not need a pulpit. You need only breath and love and one hand extended in the dark. But hear me now, kindness alone is not enough. The fire in your soul will burn out if it is not lit from above. You need Jesus, not religion, not ritual, just Him. If you're broken, cold, forgotten, He knows your name. Say it now, say His name. Speak it into the silence, even if your lips are cracked from frost. Jesus saves not through shelter, but through presence. And I believe He is still walking among the snowdrifts, looking for the ones who would walk with Him. If your hands are trembling, open them anyway. He will meet you where you are, not where you pretend to be. And if you've never prayed before, now is the time. Not for warmth, but for salvation. Not for escape, but for eternity. Because this frost may pass, or it may not. But the soul was made for more than weather. The remnant will not be counted by warmth, but by witness. If you have breath, use it. If you have light, share it. Say His name, say it when no one else will. This is not just the cold, this is the refining fire disguised in ice. And even now in the quiet, I know I am not alone. Because I walk with Him, because I called out and He answered, because I made my peace and I kept my faith. If you can hear this, you are not lost. Just kneel, just ask. Jesus saves, and He is here even in the frost. This is John Thomas. I gave what I could, I burned what I had, but I kept my soul warm, and that was enough.
This is Dr. Jack Hall, former Director of Polar and Atmospheric Studies. This will be my final report. We were wrong not just in our predictions, but in our understanding of the system itself. What we believed were cycles were actually boundaries, and now we've crossed one. The atmosphere has fractured in ways we never anticipated. The jet streams have collapsed into stillness. No energy flows, no differential builds. It's not weather anymore, it's structure. The sky has become geometry, not chaos. We're seeing static heat zones, zones where nothing moves. Some sectors now experience recurring dawn, others remain in endless night. Entire climate systems have frozen in place. Cities are encased in lightless fog that doesn't burn off. There is no forecast, no movement, only cold held together by silence. And we are now trapped within it, observers of our own irrelevance. We pushed the limits of modeling, and the models broke. The data came in corrupted or worse, repetitive. Multiple regions are showing weather loops. Sensors lock onto a reading and repeat it for hours without change. We thought it was interference until we confirmed it in person. The environment itself is holding steady, unnaturally steady. Time has become unstable. In certain locations, clocks tick backward. In others, nothing ticks at all. Our instruments measure the same snowflake over and over, as if even gravity has paused. We used to say we were modeling futures. Now we're only recording collapse. If anything changes again, we won't know in time to warn anyone. I say this not to frighten, but to clarify. Science is not supposed to bring comfort. It is meant to bring truth. And the truth is, the pattern is gone. But science isn't just measurement. It is memory. And I remember the first time I saw snowfall as a child. It was quiet, not terrifying. That feeling of wonder, I still carry it. Even now, as the world fades beneath ice, wonder matters. If you are hearing this, I ask one thing of you. Observe, watch the frost, listen to the wind, feel the pause between each heartbeat, write it down, record it, pass it on. We may not survive this moment, but the moment must survive us. Let the earth remember that someone noticed. Let the silence hold our voices like fossils in the snow. This is Dr. Jack Hall. I did not have all the answers, but I asked the questions, and I leave this signal behind as proof we tried. Stay warm, stay awake,